Let's spend a little bit of time thinking a bit more about the notion of the extreme case and how it can help you in the work that you're doing. And basically, the idea of the extreme case is a way of thinking about justifying your selection of a case study. Whenever you pick something to study, something to research in your media work, you need to give an explanation for why you're making that particular choice. There are millions of things out there, literally millions of things that we can research in relation to media. And we can do any of them, anything at all, as long as we can explain our choice, as long as we can provide a reason to the reader as to why we're asking that reader to read about the thing that we're researching. So, how can we use this notion of the extreme case? And I suppose the idea of the extreme case is based on the idea that there is some value in selecting case studies of media practice and action that involves something which seems to be quite unusual or peculiar, something which doesn't immediately make sense. And the skill here is lies in explaining what this unusual extreme case says about more ordinary everyday forms of media influence. So, what is extreme case research? Well, I suppose the first thing is that extreme cases are suited to particular types of research activity, particularly the issue of exploratory research. Perhaps what you want to do is not so much try and fix down once and for all what a particular media practice means. You're not going to solve the issue of gender exploitation in the media in your short 2,000 word essay or whatever it is. But what you can do is use your case study to ask some particular questions about what we think we know about media. So quite often using exploratory research. So for example, what's happened with Chen is she's using images from Chinese glossy magazines to ask about the limits of I suppose, the main body of feminist media research that's largely developed in relation to Western context. And she's using the issue of Chinese Vogue to say, well, what are the limits of that theory? So what you're doing is you're quite deliberately selecting an atypical case study, something which doesn't appear to be everyday, does something which doesn't appear to be usual, because you're trying to probe the outer limits of what we know about how media work. And in this case, sampling is driven by your ability to relate your case study to a well developed theoretical argument. And this is the way that you make your research generalizable to a wider audience. You say, well, this particular case study is related in this way to a particular theoretical problem. I suppose in this case, Chen is really dealing with the extent to which we can see global feminist research as responding to the same set of problematics. Um, so again, Chen selects a new form of, something which is an extreme case in the sense that it's a new and controversial form of media content, Western glossy magazines directed at a Chinese female audience, because she has a particular theoretical question. How well does feminist theory travel beyond capitalist democracies? So the reason why you select something which is unusual, an extreme case, something which appears to be not a topic that people are familiar with thinking about, is that you want to test the limits of theory. So it's really important to be able to connect your case study with a theoretical question. And so that brings us to a few final points to think about before you do your next piece of research. So, how does this topic relate to your assignment? Well, there's a number of things that everybody, and I mean all of you, can do to make your project stronger that we can learn from Chen and the notion of the extreme case. And what this also means is about making sure in your project you are revising some of the general themes that we've talked about in the unit. Now, I know that I've talked to a lot of people who don't feel that these general themes are relevant to their research. I would urge you to rethink that, because I really think that you're wrong when you say that. There are certain sorts of big questions that run through media studies, and you do need to engage with them. Otherwise, your research is not functioning within the field of critical media research. So think about doing the following things. Try and place your project in a political and historical context. Where does your project come from? Topics that, as I said, don't fall out of the sky. And one of the things that you're trying to do here is you're trying to make your topic as interesting as possible by providing as many ideas as possible as to why it's important, by drawing on as many sources as you possibly can. And this is really what's involved in the notion of the thick description. And what a thick description is basically taking a cultural event or, a small case study and really saturating it with meaning, talking about the many different ways in which that event or text or whatever it is represents a range of political and historical issues. And then also we're thinking about power. Everybody's research has to do with power. This is abundantly clear in the Chen reading, that that you cannot divorce the Chinese market from glossy magazines from the history of the position of women in major changes in Chinese society, from modernity to the revolution to the era of post-socialism, where images of women have been directly relevant to the exercise of political power. If your project is not thinking about power, you're not doing it correctly. The third thing, relate your case study to a very specific theoretical issue. What is the precise idea that you want to examine? And this is something you identify through your literature review. Don't talk about general themes. Don't talk about just big picture descriptions of theories. Try and focus on a particular aspect of that theory that you're going to interrogate. And then be really clear about what your topic represents. Why should I, as a reader, be interested in your topic? What do I need to know about it? What does it represent as an example of media influence and action? Be able to answer that question in your papers.